Jesse James didn't just rob banks, he robbed history too. Most people picture a six-shooter, a cold, steely stare, and a wanted poster with a $1,000 reward. But what if I told you Jesse wrote some of those posters himself? What if the deadliest outlaw in America was also one of its earliest public relations geniuses? He nailed it when he declared,
"I am proud of my past and of my reputation.
Jesse James was a man with skills.
I've got gunfighting skills, strategizing skills. I'm a true American folk hero."
You've heard he was a bandit, a killer, maybe even a Southern Robin Hood. But the outlaw who outwrote the law knew that the pen could wound deeper than the pistol, and Jesse James wielded both like a man who had something to prove. In this episode, we'll look at the words he lived by, the verses he quoted, the letters he published, and the stories he helped spread about himself. Because Jesse James wasn't just dodging bullets, he was managing a brand. And when your brand is gun-slinging rebel saint, you better make sure the legend shoots straighter than the truth. Before Jesse James was a legend, he was a boy on a Missouri farm, born in 1847 to a Baptist preacher and a fiercely devout mother who believed, with all the fire of Southern righteousness, that God was most certainly on their side. Jesse grew up reading the Bible, singing hymns, and helping in the fields. It was, for a time, a life of discipline and devotion. But then the Civil War came, and with it, everything exploded. When Jesse was just 14, Union troops raided his family's farm. They whipped him, interrogated his stepfather, and burned crops. That wasn't just a military tactic, it was terrorism. And Jesse took it personally. He wasn't alone. His older brother Frank had already joined William Quantrill's guerrilla band, a group so vicious even Confederate generals distanced themselves. Jesse followed soon after, joining Bloody Bill Anderson, where he learned how to kill, and more importantly, how to send a message. These weren't just ambushes. They were performances. Guerrilla warfare in Missouri was part murder, part theater. Bodies were left in public view. Towns were terrorized into silence. And Jesse, with his boyish face and sharp aim, became a rising star in the worst show on earth. But the war didn't end for Jesse in 1865. Not really. While the Confederacy surrendered, Jesse never did. To him, Reconstruction wasn't peace. It was punishment. Carpetbaggers, railroads, and banks were the new enemies. So he rebranded. The guerrilla became the outlaw. Jesse James wasn't just robbing trains. He was staging political acts, or so he said. He once wrote,
"We are not thieves. We are bold defenders of our people."
Was it propaganda? Probably. But it worked. And to make sure people knew that, he started writing letters, not ransom notes, op-eds. In 1873, after robbing a train, Jesse mailed a letter to the Kansas City Times. In it, he complained about corrupt politicians, federal oppression, and injustice. He painted himself as a victim of Northern aggression, a man defending his people against tyranny. He referred to the verse, "The Lord is on my side, I will not fear. What can man do unto me?" Psalm 118. It wasn't subtle. Jesse was building a narrative, not thief, but freedom fighter. And plenty of Southerners, still smarting from the war, believed him. To them, Jesse was a folk hero, the man who struck back. Now, was any of it true? Did Jesse really rob the rich to give to the poor? Let's just say, the poor didn't end up with much. They never do. But the newspapers ate it up. Editors sympathetic to the Southern cause printed his letters like they were gospel. One newspaper even said Jesse was as good as most men in the Senate. Jesse James, the wanted man, became Jesse James, the man with a message, which he carefully crafted for the masses. And like all great self-mythologizers, he never let the truth get in the way of a good headline. Here's where it gets funny. Jesse didn't trust the press, but he used it masterfully. When rumors spread that he'd been killed in a shootout, he wrote another letter to the editor.
"I am alive and well, and I was not in Gallatin."
He also tried to control how his crimes were described. If the press called him a murderer, he'd respond. If they left out his political message, he'd clarify. Jesse James wasn't just an outlaw, he was an editor at gunpoint. And behind all the drama was a man who read constantly. According to family accounts, Jesse was literate, clever, and enjoyed novels. He studied maps, planned routes, and may have even referenced historical revolutions to model his robberies. One Pinkerton agent noted Jesse's knowledge of military history, saying,
"He plans his movements with the precision of a field officer."
And Jesse, always the narrator of his own story, declared,
I have been hunted for 21 years. I have literally lived in the saddle. I have never known a day of real peace.
So yes, Jesse shot people, but he also storyboarded. He had a brand, a message, a myth. And then came the betrayal. By the early 1880s, Jesse was paranoid. His gang was shrinking. His alias, Mr. Howard, was wearing thin. And he trusted very few people. One of them was Robert Ford, a member of his own crew. In 1882, in a quiet home in St. Joseph, Missouri, Jesse took off his guns to adjust a picture on the wall. Ford shot him in the back of the head. The outlaw who outwrote the law may have died in silence. But his story only got louder. His death became a national sensation. Within weeks, dime novels were published, songs were written, and reprints of his letters circulated like collector's items. Children played Jesse James in the streets. Sermons were preached. His funeral drew a crowd like a carnival. Jesse James had managed the impossible. He turned outlawry into legacy, not just with bullets, but with words, with symbols, with style. He once claimed,
I never robbed a poor man, and I never will.
It wasn't true, but it was quotable, and that's what stuck. And yes, with lies. A lot of them, because the Jesse James who quoted scripture and signed letters, yours truly, J. James, was also the Jesse James who once shot an unarmed cashier in cold blood. Turns out, he wasn't Robin Hood. He wasn't a saint. He was a man who understood that if you speak the myth loud enough, people might stop checking the facts. Jesse's family life, meanwhile, wasn't just a subplot. It was part of the mythology. He married his first cousin, Zerelda Z. Mims, in 1874 after a long courtship. They had 2 children, Jesse Jr. and Mary. By all accounts, he was a devoted husband and father when he was home. He reportedly read the Bible to his kids, kept a copy on his nightstand, and taught his son how to shoot. Z, for her part, never renounced him. Even after his death, she protected his image. Smart lady, she sold stories, negotiated with biographers, and made sure that Jesse James remained, if not innocent, at least iconic. You could argue that the family became the first franchise in outlaw storytelling. And Jesse's brother Frank, he went on trial after Jesse's death and was acquitted, twice, by Southern juries who clearly wanted to see Frank James ride into the sunset like a misunderstood cowboy. Today, museums in Missouri proudly display Jesse's pistols, boots, and even locks of his hair. There's an entire Jesse James wax museum where he's frozen in time next to a model horse and a recording of his last words, which, let's be real, were probably just a confused grunt. People still debate whether Jesse faked his death. Jesse himself once joked,
If I ever die, it'll take 5 men to believe it, and 10 more to dig me up just to check.
Jesse James was a man with skills.
I've got gunfighting skills, strategizing skills. I'm a true American folk hero.
He was a man with a flair for dramatic exits. He understood that if you leave behind enough mystery, people will fill in the blanks. And Jesse knew how to market mystery like nobody else. Even decades after his death, new rumors sprang up. Some said Jesse was spotted in Texas. Others said Jesse lived under a different name in Oklahoma. A man named J. Frank Dalton even claimed to be Jesse James in the 1940s, complete with staged interviews, proof of old wounds, and a suspiciously fresh twinkle in his eye. Historians debunked him, of course, but the spectacle proved something people wanted to believe. Jesse James had become a legend, a well-crafted superhero of his time. And in a weird twist of irony, Jesse's son, Jesse Jr., became a lawyer. Yes, really. The child of the most infamous outlaw in American history went to law school. He even ran for office. Some say he did it to clear the family name. Others say it was just the next logical step in the James family myth machine, from shootouts to show trials. And the literature kept it coming. From dime novels to documentaries, Jesse's legend refused to die. Even today, new books and films rehash his life with some variation of the same title. The man, the myth, the outlaw. So next time someone says, history is written by the victors, remember Jesse James, the outlaw who outwrote the law, and maybe, just maybe, got the last word. So if you like this story of guns, gospel, and the greatest outlaw marketing campaign in history, hit that subscribe button. There's more where that came from. At Hidden History Dork, we dig up the legends, lift the curtain, and let the myths speak for themselves.